Okay. So tonight I'm going to show you a special prize that we have for Berks Photographic Society members who own a Canon. And here it comes. Stay tuned for this thing. And if you are a member, you could sign up to get this firmware update, which will help with the next competition. Our next and last competition of the year is October. And let's see, the submission deadline for this is October 13. And the evening of the monochrome theme is October 28. So if you had this firmware, you can find the menu that says win a prize, and you can have the camera enhance your image as much as you want. So it's a push to get new members who will do well in our competition. So tonight we have, I'll stop sharing for a second. Tonight we have 87 images from 26 members. Great turnout. I would urge members to try to shoot for the monochrome event in October, as opposed to going back into your archives looking for images that might fit. And we should have a really good session then. And tonight, this should be excellent. Our judge tonight is Carl Finkbeiner. Carl, if you want to just wave your hand. Carl is a professional photographer from the Philadelphia area. He does fine art photography, artifact photography services for museums and curators and makers of images. And he also does photographic instruction. Carl had been part of a high-end professional workforce for about 45 years, and he gave that up in 2015 to do his photography work full-time. He went to the Tilt Institute in Philadelphia and earned a contemporary practices in photography certificate. He's worked in event and portrait photography. He's done exhibitions of his own work, and he has taught photography, composition, editing, and other topics. Marcia will be speaking to Carl about perhaps joining us in 2025. Carl's the photographer for the Rose Valley Museum, photographing their materials. Carl is an instructor with the Digital Photo Academy, which is an online program with courses and various services. This particular business, the Digital Photo Academy, has over 200 field sessions around the world with 124 instructors. And Carl is one of those instructors. The four first place winners tonight will have their images posted on the Digital Photography Academy websites. Carl has his own business, Deliberate Light Photography. I have his contact info, his website, his Instagram, Facebook addresses in the newsletter, so please refer to those. And with that, Carl, how about if I just ask you to say hello and introduce yourself, and then we'll get started.
Hello. You can hear me okay, I assume?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Good. I'm really pleased to have reviewed these images. They were generally wonderful images. I liked them all. Of course, I have things to say because I have opinions. I want to acknowledge that I have three biases that you should probably take into account when you're listening to me tonight. One is I like brightness, another is I like contrasts, and another is I like details. Not everybody agrees with me about those things, and in fact, I don't always agree with myself about them. But just take that into account. It's biases that I have. But it was a pleasure to review these images.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Carl. My Lightroom just clicked. Hold on 1/2 second. Here we go. Good. So with that, we'll get started, and let me share my screen. And Bob, you'll take over for the admissions. Can you all see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to start this time with Class B Nature. The title is Sessile Bellwort by Amy Langman. This had a score of 8, and as noted by the 4 stars, got an honorable mention.
So I really like this image. I mean, it's a very graceful, that swooping in from the lower left up to the upper right. I like the tonality of the image. The blurred background is blurred very nicely against this soft flower or whatever that is. I'm not sure how much is flower, how much is leaf. The water droplets are very interesting. Of course, they draw your eye in flower photography. A couple of things that I would want to point out is, hold on just a second, sorry. A couple of things I want to point out is that there is a bit of blurring at the ends of this. I wish it weren't a little blurred, particularly at the tip. I think I would also probably crop it in a little bit to the right. It seems a little like sort of empty space over there. But otherwise, I just really like this image. It's a wonderful image. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I
Roots
love
by Wendy Ferrero, and this has a score of 7. Go ahead, Carl.
Sorry, I love roots. I love the sort of branching and within branching that they do, and I just like it. It's like looking at a fireplace, a fire or a flame. And I like black and white for roots. I think it allows you to focus on the patterns. This one is a little too contrasty for me. I guess the other thing I would point out is there are these, there's this big stick down here, and then the size of this main root down here is a little kind of dominating. So I would probably crop this up from the bottom a bit. But I do like the image. I mean, I like, as I say, I like roots. Okay.
This is Nuthatch by Alan Chilius. This got a score of 8 and got 2nd place.
It's a great image. The bird is sort of upside down because it's hanging from the tree. I like that sort of L shape that you captured there. It's a kind of a neat thing. The clarity of the image is really wonderful. I mean, this bird is a flighty bird and it's hard to capture, and this was a good job getting it. I think there's the bit of brightness over here on the right side, and I think that sort of I don't know, fights with the bird a little bit for attention. I also would point out that there's these I guess bokeh artifacts or something that are showing up as little blurry spots on the darker part of the background, and I would try to darken those away, just darken that whole background if I could. Beyond that, I feel like this image was sharpened too much. It's almost like a crunchy texture there or something, and so I would tone that down a bit. Okay.
Fractal Landscape by James Aguido. This got a 4.
Okay, this is actually a fascinating thing to me. I'm a mathematician by training, and what we have in here are what are called Fibonacci spirals. This is a vegetable. If you don't know what this is, it's something called the Roman cauliflower, or sometimes called Romanesque, I think. And these large protrusions are made up of smaller that form a sort of spiral shapes, but those spiral shapes are composed of other spiral shapes that are projecting within it, and within them there are spiral shapes. So it's sort of Fibonacci to infinity. And I'm fascinated by that. This particular image feels to me a little out of focus, too out of focus. Would, at least in the center, I would like it to be more focused. Also the color is this sort of sickly yellowish green, and these are not beautiful vegetables in terms of their color. I know that, but I think it it's better than this. You may also want to vignette this in order to draw more attention to what's going on in the center. Okay.
Cloud Shadows, Angel Rivera, 7.
This is a great image of a mountain. I really like it that the cloud shadows form kind of leading lines here, drawing your eye to the mountain. The mountain to me is the payoff in this image. So I wish that, it was a little wider so we could see more of the mountain. I also feel like there's too much forest at the bottom, and it's space I would just crop out towards the bottom there. Also, I do approve of vignetting as a general rule. I use it a lot myself, but I think the vignetting, at least up in these two corners, is a little too pronounced, and I would want that toned down a bit. Okay.
Hosta Glory by Brett Hartkoff, a score of 9 in first place.
This is a beautiful image, beautifully composed, and I love the contrast of the lighter colored flower here against that lovely green blurred out background. The colors are well set against one another. I like the water droplets. Again, they draw attention to the flower. And in this case, they all look almost like Christmas tree ornaments or something. And then the translucence of the leaves. I mean, it's a beautiful photo. I wouldn't do anything to this. Okay.
Fuzzy Ferns, Amy Langman, 6.
Yeah, this is soft, very soft focus, sort of tranquil, soothing kind of an image. I think intentionally, probably was softened quite a bit intentionally.
I don't like it. Did you get a 6?
Can you mute, please?
Some things that I look at here that I'm a little concerned about is the fact that the things that are most in focus in this image are over here on the side. And since my eye, at least, and I think many people's eyes get drawn to the things that are in focus in an image, I don't know that that's where you want my eye going. It's a very complete field of sort of blurred green, light green. Since the top part is brighter than the bottom part, again, the eye tends to go towards the bright in an image, and so it'll get drawn up there. And I'd ask you if that's what you wanted, or if you wanted more of the attention in the center or towards the lower end. But it's a very soothing image, and I like it. Go ahead.
After the Rain, Jackie Burke, 5.
This image has a lot going. I mean, it's a good capture, I would say. It's got three significant elements. It's got this llama here. It's got, the nice mountain in the background with lots of interesting details, and of course the rainbow. And I think a lot can be made of that. I think the image is just a bit too blurred, misty looking for my taste. I'd like to see more of the llama and maybe less of the whatever this third is at the bottom of the image. If there's time in the demonstrations at the end, I hope to be able to show you what I would do with this image. But it's it's got a lot of potential, and I think you captured the right stuff in this image. Okay.
Host by Wendy Ferraro, 7.
Yeah, we got these wonderfully rim-lit fungi growing up the side of a tree, so almost like crawling up the side of the tree. That's a striking image, I think, in many ways. Given the perspective from the bottom of the tree up, I like that. If anything, I would have actually moved in a little closer to the tree to sort of foreshorten the top of the tree a bit. But I like those elements of it. I probably would crop it, by the way. I'd probably crop it at the bottom, cutting right through the bottom fungus there, just to make it look more like the fungus was growing out of the bottom of the image. Okay.
Monkey Sri Lanka by Brian Clark. This got a 3.
This is a cute little monkey. I absolutely understand why you were attracted to this image and why you wanted it. I would want it too. Some issues with the image, though. First of all, we have this leaf kind of covering the head of the monkey. That's unfortunate. So I would want to try to find a different perspective on the monkey if that's possible. I mean, monkeys move around, and it's hard to. They don't just go where you tell them to go, of course. But I would still, to me, that leaf is distracting. Also, the color tone of this image is kind of flat. And I'd want to brighten it and add a little bit of depth, tonal depth in the image. Maybe crop it at the sides, maybe, but as I say, I think it's a cute picture, and I would like to see you push it a little farther. Okay.
Flower Burst by Brett Hop, and this got an 8.
This is what I call allium fireworks. The alliums are in the onion and garlic family, and this is the kind of flower that they have. It's a very spectacular flower. I really like it. I like the way it's set off against the background, color-wise and tonally on the background. Some things that I wish were a little different is this. Some parts of the flower are blurred that I wish weren't. Well, that's the only thing that I would change about this image, is try to change the depth of field, which is easier said than done once you have the image. All right.
Lady in Waiting, Jackie Burke. This got a 7.
This is a good, strong first impression image. The dark background is a great choice for this, given how bright the strands of the web are, and of course the spider is nicely illuminated. Sort of this image has good lurkiness quotient. There is such a thing. I like the colorful shimmering on the web, the lower part of the web. And this is not really a criticism, but when I was looking at this, I sort of felt like gravity wasn't working the way I expected it to in this image. And so just on a whim, I flipped it or vertically rather. And all of a sudden, everything sort of looked to me like I expected it to look, in terms of the way the web was bowing down and the way the spider was sitting on the web. I'm not sure if you did that on purpose, but you try it and take a look at it. But as it stands, this is a very impactful image. Okay.
Bearded Dragon by James Aguido got an 8 and 3rd place.
I think this particular picture is proof, if you needed it, that Cell phones take good pictures. This is a cell phone photo. It was, I like the sort of the lightness of the dragon in the foreground, how close it is, and what a great, you get that beady eye looking at you there. Against this blurred background that looks like it's somewhere out in the desert or something like that. Although I don't think in this particular case, I peeked at the GPS coordinates of this image, and it was somewhere in Northeast Philadelphia, but that's okay. This is a great shot. The things that I wish were a little different about this image, you cut off the toes. And I wish you hadn't. I would like to, to me, it looks a little awkward, I guess. I also sort of wish I could see more of the tail. I wouldn't unblur it. I think having the tail blurred is fine, but I'd like to see more of it there on. That's it. Okay.
Who moves first?
This is Cadu.
Angel Rivera, 6.
This is, cute little, a different kind of a lizard. This is cuter than the previous one with that little curled tail. I like that. There's a depth of field issue here I'd like to point out. The grains of dirt or sand or whatever it is here are all sharply in focus. But the back part of the lizard is blurred. And it's like the depth of field, the field for the depth of field is centered in the wrong place. That's that's a matter of where you focus the image, and also issues like the aperture and how far away you are. Beyond that, the image here again is tonally quite flat. I'd like to see it brightened up a little bit, because I think the little lizard, is a little more interesting an animal. And I think there's like too much gray around it, too much gray field around it. I'd crop it down a bit. Otherwise, it's fine. Keep doing these kinds of images. Okay.
And we'll move to, that was it for Class B nature. We'll go to Class A nature, and thank you for that, Carl. This one is called Cute Couple by Bob Gross. Got a 5.
It is a cute couple. I like ducks. In fact, if I was here right now, I'd be looking around for breadcrumbs to feed the ducks. I would have preferred to have a clearer view of the ducks. They're sort of covered up a bit, and it's distracting by these reeds or ferns or weeds or whatever it is that's sticking up in front of them. The other thing I'd point out is you have this sort of bright streak going up to the right there that kind of draws the eye away from the ducks. So I would try to do something about that, probably darken it down a bit would be sufficient. I understand why you want the ripples up here at the top in the image. I like ripples myself. These are actually a bit out of focus at the top, and so I would just prop it down. I think it brings the image more in balance if you did that. Okay.
Reaching Out, Judy Ralston, got a 7.
Great feel of old woods here. I like the gnarled limbs with the moss covers, and it's a great feel to it. The background is brighter than the trees. And the background, of course, is very cluttered because it's forest. So I would probably try to darken the background down a bit. It to me would help. I would not darken the trees, the big trees that are in the center of this image. In fact, I might even lighten them up a little to contrast against the background more. But I really liked this image.
Doreen. Terry Gola got a 6.
I am a sucker for these kinds of, the ridges of mountains or hills fading off into the distance, into the misty distance. I really love that image. I love that effect. And this is a very nicely done one. Of course, the image also has the bonus, if you pay attention to the image a bit, you can see that there's a bird here. And that's a nice touch. The bird is a little subtle, maybe a little too small. I would try to maybe crop up from the bottom a bit and maybe down from the top a bit. I don't mind wide, short images. I think they can be very dramatic. And I think that's the case here, but I would like to try to get the bird a little bigger. Also, I would point out you have kind of a natural leading line beginning here from this brightness in the clouds. And if you just extended that a little farther to cover up, to be behind the bird, it would highlight the bird a little bit more. And I think it would be a good effect. Okay.
Delighted. Tom's Story 8.
This is a gorgeous image with a strong first impression. I love the color contrast of the purple flowers and purple and red flowers against the green and yellow background, and the intricate black outlines of the butterfly wings.
Hey,
Sorry. I do wish that the background, it was a little bit more discernible. I wouldn't unblur the background, but I would maybe blur it a little bit less. I also think that there's a little too much of the yellow-green blurred background. I would probably crop some of this out. But I really like the image. Go ahead.
Indigo Bunting, Jenny Lodge, 7.
Beautiful picture of a little bird. This is what's called high key, which just means that there's a lot of lightness and bright light in the image. And I like the colorful bird set against that light green background. That's a very good color contrast as far as I'm concerned. The only thing that I would want to improve in this image is, it seems to me I can't see enough of the details in the head of the bird, or maybe even in the body of the bird. I'd like to bring it out a little bit more. And then I would also toy around with whether or not cropping up from the bottom might improve the image, because the bird is kind of high in the image, but that's not necessarily bad. It would be something I would just want to take a look at. Good image. Next.
Overflow, Vince Pellegrini, 7.
What a rush this is. I mean that literally and figuratively both. This was a somewhat long exposure, 1/5 of a second. Now, in order to get that much streaking in the 1/5 of a second, that water had to be moving very fast, and you get that feel very strongly in this image. I love the way the lines of the water pull your eye down to lower left. I get a sort of sense of vertigo from looking at this. Another thing that I noticed in here is in the metadata here was that the aperture was set at f40. That's 40. That's a very, very tiny little aperture. I tend to try to stay away from apertures like that because they can introduce some refractive aberrations in the image sometimes, although I don't see that here. They can also tend to sort of dampen down colors and distinctions, and I think I would want to see this brightened up. I'd like to see some of those lighter streaks of water sort of opalesce a little bit. Okay.
Bird in Winter, Debbie Lewinson, 8.
This is a beautiful image. That bird is so well detailed. You know, I could spend a little time just staring at, admiring those feathers. And you captured it just in the middle of chomping down on something, which is great. I also love the background on this, the sort of pillowy clouds of snow back there that are almost delicate looking, and they set off the bird very nicely. I really also like the line of the shadow here. I think that sort of balances the bird well. The only thing here that I would point out is that you notice that the breast of the bird tends to fade in completely with the background behind it. I'd like that breast to be a little bit more distinct. Now, I would just point out, you can probably improve that just by in the color mixer with playing around with the luminance of yellow, maybe orange, because those are the very faint colors in that breast that that you could make stand out. But I would, that's the only thing I would do, and it's very, very small. This is a very good image. Next.
Yosemite, 5 a.m. Lee Reeves, this got a 9 and third place.
I want to be there. I mean, I love Yosemite when I've been there, and this is a really beautiful shot of it, very evocative. The very early morning light coming in, lighting up the mountaintops and the trees and the water there with the steam, with the vapor rising off of it. I mean, it's a wonderful feel on this image. The only thing here I would suggest is trying to get a little more detail in the mountains and maybe lighten up and maybe even warm up a bit where the mountain crags are being lit by the sunlight. It's a great shot. Next.
Frozen. Julie Stauffer, 8.
Beautiful, delicate image here. Looks like, you know, the cherry blossoms falling off of a cherry tree in the spring. But that's not what it is. Literally, the title is Frozen, and it looks to me like these blossoms have been frozen in a block of ice. When I get close to the image, you know, zoom in on the image, I can see, for instance, that this part of the twig down here is actually under ice, and this part up here is sticking out of the ice. And you can see it in a few other places. You can barely detect it. Very subtle, but that is the case here. That's how this was done. So these aren't falling petals. These are frozen petals, literally. It was a wonderful touch to backlight so brightly on the back. It makes this a very delicate image. Okay, next.
Fern Patterns, Mia Curran, 8, and this got honorable mention.
Mm-hmm. To me, this is a very striking image. I love the two broad fern leaves. I love the sort of main lines that run down the middle with these little branching lines going off and the veins going off on the side. I think that's nice details. I like the water droplets on it. Again, water droplets tend to draw the eye. And that's a good thing here. And I really like the little ferns behind, especially I like the stems that sort of parallel the main broad leaves, and then also one stem that cuts across. I like that kind of complexity and detail, and then the little branching down here in the corner. The only thing I would point out is that down here in the corner, there seems to be a focus issue. I wish it's a depth of field issue. And maybe right back in here as well. I wish they were all in focus too. Next.
Nature's Intricacies, Jackie Henney, 7.
Beautiful shot of this bee, and the detail on it is outrageous. You can see the individual bits of pollen on the legs here. You can see the individual hairs on the body of the bee and these iridescent eyes. And the wings that are transparent, you can see the flower through them with the veins of the wings. It's wonderful detail in there against this bright blue flower, which is very striking. the blue is a little too overwhelming to me. I would wanna, I don't know, either tone it down or introduce some more detail into it to make it, a little bit less of a mass of blue. The other thing is the beast is riding kind of high in the image. I'd like a little space above the B. And then I might crop it on the right a bit just to balance it. That's it. It's a great image. That's
Dream in Motion. Ellen Zimmerman, 8.
Yeah, this is another longer exposure. It was 0.8 of a second. And that creates this really, soft, foamy, I guess, frothing image of the stream rushing along. So it gives you a real sense of motion for the stream, and I like that a lot. As I was looking at this picture, I started to feel again like things weren't working the way I expected them to work, in nature. So the flow of the water seems to be in this direction, right? Sort of upwards. But there's these little waterfalls and downward flow. So I mean, it's like the water's flowing uphill, and that's easy to fix. You just tilt the image back so it feels normal again. This log down here in the front certainly adds a bit of an element of interest, but I would toy around with just cropping it out. I don't know that it's absolutely necessary to the nice flow of this image. Next.
Oyster Catcher with Chick. Debbie Lewinson, 9, first place.
Yeah, and this is a really beautiful image. The detail and the feathers and then the legs, green, you can see individual grains of sand. The chick there, which has which is eating a chunk of, I guess it's clam, that the parent, I don't know whether that's a male or a female parent, is holding this clamshell. This image was taken at 1/2000th of a second, which is very fast. And you sort of had to, because these birds move around a lot if you're going to freeze this. The background is just a little bit gray for me. I would like to see the background brightened up a bit, but otherwise I think this is a beautiful image. It's a great image.
Good Morning Sunshine. Ellen Zimmerman, 3.
I like this image. It's a sunrise image, I guess. Good morning means sunrise. Yep. It looks like it's going to be a hot day. The bright orange and the clouds in the sky, and you've got this silhouetted tree against the sunrise, which is it's a great capture. I have to say some of the details in the background look a little smeared out. We have this sort of halo golden glow around the smaller twigs in the image in several places that and then finally there are these rims, very bright rims around every twig in the tree. So the image to me has this sort of, I don't know, it's like a smeared out feel to it. It's also a little bit muddy for my taste. So I would, but you captured all the right elements. So I don't know if that was done in post. That I know that if you adjust clarity in a negative direction too much, it can have this kind of an effect on an image. But I hope in the demonstrations to be able to show you how, if given this image, how I would try to clear it up a bit.
Spring by Judy Ralston, 9, second place.
Gorgeous tulip here. I love the colors of the blossom against the background colors, and the blurred out background color is very nice. I mean, I would point out, by the way, that the blur seems to have some flow to it that sort of wraps around the blossom in a way that mimics the flow of the blossom itself. which I think is a very stunning effect. The water droplets, again, draw your attention just where you want it. I don't mind at all in this image that the edges of the blossom are kind of a little blurry and soft, because I think that it works here. So it's a great image.
Purple refractions, Mia Curran, 6.
Boy, talk about a strong first impression here. This really kind of hits you in the eye, at least for me it did. I think this is a bud of a flower that will flower into something that's the color of that purple in the upper right. But you see these, it's a hairy bud, which is kind of striking to begin with. And then you've got all these water droplets suspended in the hairs. And that's very striking as well, especially since some of them are refracting the purple from that flower to the right. The flower on the right, unfortunately, kind of draws my eye a little too much. I'd rather I stayed focused on this bud. There are places in this image that are out of focus that I really wish weren't out of focus. So that's a depth of field issue again. And then there's this, whatever this is, this yellow red over here that's behind the bud that's kind of obscuring the tip of the thing a little bit. To me, that says this is, I'd like to see if there's a different position to shoot this bud from that wouldn't have those things in the background kind of interfering a little bit, and then also the depth of field. Next.
Geometry of Nature, Ivan Bub, 8.
I love the flow of this. I mean, to me, again, my eye is drawn to the brightest part, which is down here in the corner. And then you have this flow going around the neck of the swan and coming down through the beak, and your eye gets drawn right back to where it started from. I just love that. I think, and I really like the fact that it's against the black background. I think that makes it very striking. I think the bird itself is a little bit darker than I would like to see. Particularly, it seems like in the face. I'd like to see more of that beak. I like the orange against the black and everything else being white. But also up here in the face, you will, I don't know if you can see it, but there's part of the head of the bird that's fading into or blending into the black background so much that it's almost hard to see. And I'd like to see that brought out a bit more, and the way I would do that is by brightening up the head a little bit. Okay.
Beauty in Withering, Vince Pellegrini, 6.
I do love, so some reason that, there we go. I do love, gnarled wood. This looks like a Japanese bonsai plant practically, although I'm not sure that it's not a live tree out in the wild. It just has a really nice look to it. And the way the wood almost glows, I find that very attractive. Unfortunately, up here at the top, this orangish, kind of light colored background makes that difficult to see what's going on with the tree. And I sort of regretted that. I would like to see some of that toned down a bit so that so that the tree stands out more. You might consider switching over to black and white on this one, and then playing with the color mixer on the under the black and white to get different tonalities, and see if you can't make that tree, that wonderful gnarled tree, glow a little bit. Okay.
Snug, Tom Story, 7.
Okay, my first impression of this was, wow, great flower. And it took me a second to realize, no, there's more to it than just a flower. In fact, I suspect that toad, I think it's a toad, has that bright back on it. And by the way, I don't know if that's natural coloration or maybe pollen that's rubbed off on it, but that, makes a camouflage for that animal for against predators. It works very well. I mean, look at the yellow green on the back versus the yellow green in the cup of the flower. Brilliant flower. I wish, first of all, that some of the tips of the leaves over here and over here were more in focus. And I also kind of wish I could see more of the petals, a little bit more of the petals. But I really enjoyed this image a lot. Next.
Sun-kissed waves, Ginny Lodge, 5.
This one is, again, a long exposure. Well, not that long. It was 1/6 of a second, but that's enough with the motions of the waves to soften the image of the ocean, and then you have this very soft light in the background. It's, you know, it's a nice color combination. I kind of wish it was a little bit, I don't know, deeper colors. But one thing I might suggest you do is use longer exposure with neutral density filters. If you don't know what they are, look them up. So that allows you to get longer exposures without changing the colors. And that would soften things even a bit more. Another thing you might try here is intentional camera movement. That, you know, swinging the camera a bit from left to right while the exposure is going on, just to add some lines to the image, which can be striking. It can be rewarding. Next.
Majestic Beauty, Ivan Bub, 8.
You know, it's very striking. That white against black is very striking, with a little pop of color from the beak and the eye. I mean, this bird has attitude, right? Looking at you like, you know, what are you doing? And I like that. I like this pose. I'm sure you asked the bird nicely, and it did just what you wanted, right? There's this kind of modeling, faint modeling in the background, which I find a little distracting. I'd like to, you know, darken that down a bit more. It'd also be nice if to brighten up the front head and beak of the bird a little bit, just to make that a little bit more striking. It's a little unfortunate that you have this twig sticking up here and interfering, and I noticed that, a little bit of a distraction to me. And you know, I know the rules of engagement that you have are that you can't remove things from these nature images, and that's fine. I understand that. Maybe the only alternative you have here is to wait till the bird moves and strikes another wonderful pose for you, which that's asking a bit. I would also point out that there is more detail in the ends of the feathery fronds of that bird that could be brought out, and I think it would be make it even more dramatic. But I really enjoyed the image.
Yellowstone Lake View, Lee Reeves, 7.
Wonderful layers in this image. You know, you've got the grass in the foreground and the lake, and then the forest behind that, and then the mountain behind that, and then the sky up. So you got these nice layers going on here. And then just to cap it all off, you have a bison posing nicely for you right there. It's a very good capture. I feel like it's a little bit too, I don't know. It needs to be brightened up a bit, or the contrast needs to be there. The only other thing I'd point out is that there's an awful lot of blue in the mid-tones out here in the distance, and I try to warm that up a little bit. Maybe try to get a little more contrast with the buffalo, with the bison, but that's it. It's a good image.
Slightly Disheveled, Julie Stoffer, 7.
There's this fun, festive flower here, very high key, which I think is absolutely appropriate for this. I really appreciated that aspect of it. I also like the fact that it almost looks like those petals have been painted with a brush, and that it's a nice touch there. I wish that the part of the blossom back here was more in focus. Or perhaps we found a different perspective here so that it wasn't being seen. We also have this really nice seed here poking up, adding a little bit of visual interest, and I like that. I appreciated that. Although honestly, I would rather either see more of that seed or less of it. I'm not sure which, but that's all a matter of changing position on the image. Which with flowers, you usually have the opportunity to change position. The flower doesn't move. Next.
Agave by Terry Gola. This has a 6, I'm sorry, an 8.
I first looked at this image without realizing what the title was and said, my gosh, this doesn't look like nature to me. Has there been a mistake? But then I did look at the the title and said, and remembered that, yeah, there are agave leaves. Agave leaves tend to be kind of rigid to begin with. But they do sort of shred and peel along the edges, and the peels have this kind of spirally, springy look to them. So this is not a sheet of plastic with springs hanging off. This is a plant, and I think it's very well done. I like this sort of abstract feel of it. I like that a lot. Again, I would point out that the part that's most in focus is over here on the right, and that seems a little bit awkward to me. I would rather have more of the image in focus, or perhaps none at all. But whatever, it's a very good abstraction. I really enjoyed the sort of the visual trickery of it. Thanks.
Knocking on Heaven's Door, Jackie Henney, 4.
Very dramatic sunset here. You know, these swirling clouds, the brilliant colors of the settings. I assume it's a sunset. And then the dark sea below there. Honestly, I like contrast, but this feels like too much contrast to me. It feels sort of unnatural in a way, that the amount of contrast that it has. I'd also probably like to see a little the sea lightened up a bit, but you have a good eye for drama here, so keep pushing it. Thanks.
Spring in the Meadow, Bob Gross, 5.
A wonderful picture of a bird here in a sea of yellow flowers in a meadow somewhere. I like the flow of the image. I mean, you've got the flow of the line of flowers here. That's very nice. But you also have the flow of some of the branches here of these bushes that's here. So I mean, it really pulls your eye along, and that's to me a very good effect. I like that. The bird is riding a little high for my taste. I'd rather see it a bit lower in the image. And then the other thing is, if you zoom in on the bird itself, which I encourage you to do if you have a copy of the picture, you can see that the throat is not chopped out the way it looks like it is here. But it's just that the throat is blending in very much with the background. That needs to be brought out a little bit more and contrasted with the background a little bit more. And it would be nice to have the bird a bit more colorful too. Next.
And that's the end of that class. We'll now go to Class B, Pictorial. Give me a second, sorry.
Okay.
Jim Thorpe, Flashback by Wendy Ferraro, 6.
I like the old-timey feel of this image. It's a very nice, horse and carriage picture in a very picturesque old town. With the opera house back there in the background. I mean, the thing that makes it not really old time is, for example, this woman here is holding a cell phone. We also have cars, of course, in the image. But that doesn't ruin the image at all. It's just it's just something that I noticed. The picture feels to me like there was a part of the image on the left that was cut off. And the reason I say that, I mean, it feels a little unbalanced, because the reason I say that is you see this very steep pitch to the pole here because of the wide angle lens. But the pitch of this building over here is not nearly as steep, which implies to me that because wide angle lenses kind of balance their distortion, there's a part of the image on the left there that's been cut off. You can fix that with the transform feature in Lightroom so that at least, I mean, you don't have to remove those slants, but at least make them balance a bit so that the thing feels less like it's about to topple over. Also, excuse me, I would also want to point out that the top of the image is very bright, and that tends to fight with the with what I think is the center of attention, which is the horse and carriage. Next.
Is it time yet? Amy Langman, 4.
So you have these little birds peering out of the circle here of the birdhouse. And you know, it's a kind of a cute image in that regard. I would probably want to see the birds a little bit brighter, but on top of that, this feels like the hole for the birdhouse is set too high in the image. I mean, the birds are looking up, so I would like there to be more space on the top of the image and a bit less space down here at the bottom. And also, I mean, the wood grain it's okay. The color's not bad, interesting color, but it's not wonderful wood grain, so I wouldn't want as much of it as you have in this image. Plus, you have this groove over here that I sort of feel like I'm not sure what purpose the groove serves. I would crop that out. Okay, next.
Garden Club. Angel Rivera, 5.
Okay, I looked at this and in my initial impression was this was some kind of a shed, a gardening shed, but then I realized, no, this is probably a garden ornament. And decided that based on the size of the screws and the nail holes up here. But that's fine, that's neither here nor there. I kind of wish that the point of view had been from up here looking down so we could see a bit more of the base of that shed and a bit less of the platform that it's standing on. Not less, but from a different perspective. The other thing is, I mean, it's a well-taken image. I would, and well balanced, but it feels a little flat to me, and I'd like to see that brightened up a bit and a little more contrast. But what I would suggest too is you might consider sepia toning this. With the black and white, it might add a nice touch to it. And later on in the demonstrations, I can show you a way that I'd use for sepia toning. Okay.
New York State Girls Soccer Division 3 Final. David Lowell, 5.
I really like the very wide angle view here. I mean, it gives a great sense of the magnitude of of what's going on the field. And then the background of the field is very nice as well. I like that kind of the details in that. I would point out that the image is slightly tilted, and I say that based on the light pole here. It's tilted slightly, and that's just a matter of tilting back. That's not that big a deal. But the thing that I would suggest is that, you know, the important part of this image is down here at the bottom. It's the field with the players on it. It's sort of jammed into the bottom, which kind of lessens its importance in the image in my perspective. So I would want to see more space of the field at the bottom to bring the line of players up a bit. You probably don't need as much space at the top of the image, so I would give that up a bit. And I'd also try to brighten up the field and make that a more noticeable, important part of the image. Next.
Almost forgotten. Becky Carpenter, 9, first place.
This is a beautiful image. I really like this image. Here's one of the things I like is, you've got this soft light, I guess it's north light, I'm not sure, coming in through this window here. And that's the direction of the light, more or less. The image of the woman is, the line of the woman is almost exactly perpendicular to the incoming light. So what does that mean? You get this sort of smooth, brightness on the, or lighting on the top of the woman's figure, and then on the part away from the light, there's some shadow, and that gives a lot of contour to the figure of the woman and makes her more striking, in my opinion. I also just love it that the line of this woman was lined up. I don't know if this was intentional, but it was beautifully done. Lined up with this patch in the wall up here, which kind of extends the line of the woman up into this curl, which comes down then, and that coming down part sort of pulls down the pipe hanging down there. So it's nicely done. It's a really beautiful image.
Welcoming the Sun. Brett Harthop, 8, and this got honorable mention.
I really liked the image because for me, it sort of evoked a little story in my head. I'm sitting there in this field of flowers, maybe in the spring, with a vacation cabin visible in the background, but the flowers are what's grabbing my attention. I really like that part of it. I think the field needs to be brightened up a bit. I think the flowers deserve to be a little whiter than they are. The image may be a little bit oversaturated. You might want to tone that down a little, but I really like the image. Next.
Skyscraper by Jay Linsenberg-Bigler, a 7.
You lined this one up perfectly. I mean, you lined yourself up with the edges of the image so that the windows on either side of that corner are perfectly matched in terms of the widths of the windows. That's a great job. I mean, I also really appreciated the little shadow or whatever it is here coming up on both sides. Again, quite symmetric, and I appreciated that. This image is all about symmetry. I liked the fact that the windows are not blown out white, but they look kind of silvery, like a glass reflection. And in some of the windows, you see reflected clouds, which again, I appreciate that little bit of detail. The presence of clouds in the windows implies that there's clouds in the sky, and you don't see any. And honestly, I would like to see some. In this, bring up the sky a bit to look for the clouds that are obviously up there. The only other thing, and it's a kind of a small thing, I mean, as it stands, notice that this center line is not perfectly straight up and down. It's tilted a little. That's probably okay. But if it were me, I would have felt compelled to straighten that corner so it was perfectly vertical, and then crop it so it was exactly symmetric on both sides. And that's just me. All right, next.
Fun at the Fair, Jackie Burke, 8, and this has got 2nd place.
What a fun time those kids are having, right? I mean, it's just, they look like they're just enjoying themselves to death here. That's wonderful. The diagonal lines of the ropes is a really good touch because diagonal lines can and do in this case add sort of a dynamic tension to the image, which is exactly what you want here. These kids are flying around here. And you see their, you know, their hair blowing in the wind. That's wonderful. I love the expression on the girl's face there in the front. This image was, let's see if I can find it here. It was taken at an ISO of 8,000, which is a very high ISO. And so I would have expected to see a lot of noise in this image. My guess is that it got denoised. And the process of doing that, you probably smooth things out a bit. And it actually looks kind of smooth, which is not necessarily bad. I mean, this is a very good image as it stands. But I would really want to know what would happen if we could get some of the texture back again here. I would also want to see just a little more air above her head. Now, when you're taking that picture, you get the best picture you can, and you have split seconds in order to make that decision. You know, so it's easy for me to say, yeah, you need more space up there, but I wasn't the one in that instant trying to get that shot. It's a good shot. Next.
Little Priestess by James Aguido, 3.
This is a, you know, kind of a silly thing, which fun, silly thing in a good, in a fun way. I like that. Maybe like a Halloween scene or something. The things I think it could be improved though. I think it could be made even more Halloween-y. I would try to get the monster more in focus, maybe unfocus or blur out those stones in the back because they do sort of draw interest in the image. I would probably change perspective here so that I was shooting straight on and then also shooting more from lower than you are here so that you're sort of shooting from the perspective of the bunny there. That would tend to make the monster behind the bunny sort of loom over it. And then I think there's a lighting issue here. I think it's just too bright an image to be the scary Halloween thing that you would want it to be with this funny bunny in the front. So I you know, you'd want more of the flashlight under the chin, ghost stories around a campfire kind of lighting, right? To highlight some parts of that monster behind the bunny, make it a little more scary. And that's what I would do there.
Part landscape, part not. David Lobel, 8 and 3rd place.
Okay, I mean, if you listen to what I said earlier, I like brightness and I like contrast, so you would expect that I wouldn't like this image, but I really like this image, and I'll tell you why. It evokes for me a little story, and the story is I'm in this dingy gray drab room, looking through this shade out into the world. And down below, I see that there's, you know, color out there and, you know, something potentially interesting out there. And so for me, this evokes for me a kind of a yearning feeling. And I really like that. I appreciate that about this. The only thing I would do to this picture is try to straighten the window frame a bit so that it was parallel with the edges of the image.
NYC Ladies by Jay Linsenbigler. This got a 4.
I had to look at this image for a while to figure out what was going on. I mean, it didn't take that long, but it didn't immediately leap out at me. But my first impression of this image is it's kind of funny. It's like there's this Groucho Marx mannequin here. At least that's the way it struck me. And the very bright mannequins against the kind of busy detail in the darker street behind there. And I fairly quickly realized that what's going on is it's like we're in a display window with the mannequins looking out at the street, and the display window is lit up, so you see the reflection of the mannequins pretty clearly. But beyond that, it just seemed kind of busy, and it was hard for me to figure out what was going on here. It looks like it's leaning backwards. There is this kind of interesting possibility. You've got the face of this woman down here, and this may have been what you were going for, but you have the face of the woman in a digital display sign in the background, showing up fairly clearly in this image. And it may be you're sort of contrasting the realness of that face, although it's in the digital image, against the very tangible but unreal mannequins that we're showing. There's a little unbalanced for that, if that's what we were going for, but it's at least kind of interesting. The other thing I'll point out is that this was flipped horizontally. The lettering in on the signs up here is backwards. Maybe you did that on purpose, I don't know. But I found myself sort of trying to figure out what that was, and that was distracting me from the rest of the image. Okay.
Tranquility by Brett Hartkop, and this is a 6.
I love this long beach. I love the swoop of the beach as it comes around from the left over there all the way around and widens out here in front of me. I love that. I love the lines in the sand, you know, going sort of diagonally across the swoop of the beach. I think that's a very nice touch. The only thing is, I think the lighthouse is jammed up a little too close to the right edge there. I'd like to see more of it. And then to me, the whole thing needs to be brightened up a little bit. It's just a little bit drab. Okay.
Sentinel and the Summit, Angel Rivera, 5.
Yeah, I really like bronze statues. I like some of the detail and the glint of the metal, and I find them, especially with a lot of detail like this one has, I enjoy them. I enjoy the fact that the shape of the hat is echoed by the shape of the mountain behind the sky. That's a very nice touch. I found myself wishing, though, that I could see what it was that he's looking, or she is looking at down here, that would bring a little bit more interest to me into the picture, to bring that to raise that up a bit. Beyond that, I think, you know, raising the shadow so I can see more of what's going on under that hat would improve the picture a bit. Okay.
Ghost Wagon by Brian Clark, and it's got a 3.
I see what you're going for here. The wagon looks kind of by looking a little blurry, and that color is looking a little bit ghostly. But I'm sorry, it didn't work for me. The wagon ended up looking a little blurry and a little dusty, and then the thing that overwhelms the picture is this very bright splash of light here on the wall that actually comes out onto the wagon itself, and that's very distracting from the main point of the image, which I would think is the wagon. I found this hay bale on the left here also kind of fights with the wagon. I wish you hadn't cut off the bottom of the wheels. That's a thing that I have. I would suggest that you come back when it's darker and you don't have this bright splash of light on the wall. Maybe the only light coming in from the door back there, so that the wagon is kind of silhouetted a bit, and it might be a better image. But that's what I would do. Next.
Venice at Night, Wendy Ferrara, 5.
This, you know, atmospheric film noir kind of feel to this, I really appreciated, and I liked it. I think I like the couple back here that's being silhouetted against the bright lights. That's a very nice touch. I think the foreground here is too bright, and I would probably cut some of it out. I mean, you want to leave some of that building on the right there. That's an interesting kind of a building. But I would cut some of that brightness out, and I would probably cut off on the left too. The steps on the left are a bit too much as they stand. I would leave some, but I think it's too much. You also have these little, I don't know, flares or artifacts here in the sky, and I would take those out. I would have said the buildings look kind of tilty and wobbly, but I've been to Venice and that's what they look like. All right, next.
This Old House, Amy Langman, 7.
It's been said by some friends of mine, architect friends of mine, that houses get more interesting as they get older. And I think this is an extreme example of that. I do find this a very interesting image. I like the detail, the textures and the colors and the lines of this image very much. Some things that I think might improve it. You have up here in the corner this, I don't know, that's a beam or something like that, but it's kind of, a little bit of a distraction in the image. Also, I feel like you could crop that down. And I would feel comfortable sort of balancing the window equidistant from the top and the bottom of the image. That would be fine. And I also think the image is just I'll leave it flat for my taste. I'd brighten it up a bit. Okay.
Stephanie, Becky Carpenter, 8.
Okay, now you're just showing off. This is another beautiful image here. I would point out, I kind of like this thing. And it's an effect that, I don't know if it was deliberate, but I love the effect. So you have this woman standing sort of vertically here. And then you have these patches in the wall over here. And then you have this patch in the wall going off in this direction. And then you have a crack back here in the wall going in this direction. So it's this kind of spray of lines in the image that I found very attractive. What it does is it then emphasizes the sort of the magnitude of the field above, which is great. I mean, the patch on the left is, this big visual element. It's a good one. I like it. I wonder if this image is just a little too warm. And I say that because of the tone of the skin on the woman. But it's a beautiful image.
Hitting Her Stride, Jackie Burke, 7.
A great image of motion here in a still photo. And I really appreciate that. Getting a galloping horse in a panning shot where the entire horse is perfectly outlined is virtually impossible, and that's because different parts of the horse are going at different speeds. So if you get one part right with the panning, the other parts are going to be out of focus. In this case, you got the part right that you should have, which is the body of the horse, and to the extent that you could, the head of the horse, although horses' heads move also. But the legs are blurred, which implies motion, which is great. The tail is a little blurred, but that's, the tail flipping around as the horse is galloping along. I really appreciate the distance between the nose of the horse and the edge of the image. It gives, the feeling that the horse has somewhere to go as it's galloping along. The only thing I would do up here is try to bring up some of the detail in the horse's body. Next.
And that is the end of that grouping. And our last is Class A Pictorial.
Okay.
And the first image in that grouping is Imagination. Ellen Zimmerman scores 9, honorable mention.
I love this image. I give you lots of points for creativity in the image. I love the brush strokes. It's sort of evocative of rain to me, although it's kind of a muddy rain, but I mean, that's the way it feels to me, especially against that green background, or the hills in the background there. There's apparently a reflection down there. There's a river or something that we're looking at here. I like the details of the background, the plants and the lines, the little hills and so on. I mean, to me, this was a very rewarding photo to gaze at, and I liked that. The only thing I would want to toy around with is to see if it's maybe a bit oversaturated and try to see if toning it down wouldn't hurt, might help it. Okay, next.
Blossom and Bud, Jenny Lodge, 9.
A real beauty here. I think this is a star magnolia. I think it's a real blossom, not a cloth one or silk one. But it's gorgeous. It's very well lit, regardless of what it is. You have the magnolia bud down here at the bottom to sort of balance against it. I like the detail of the woven basket, the colors of the whole image overall, the lighting. It's terrific. The only thing is that I feel like it's a little unbalanced towards the left, and so I would try to crop off on the right. And that might mean bringing the bud underneath over a bit, but it's a great image.
US Navy, Bob Gross, 8.
Okay, this is an image, another panning image, but in this case, no part of that airplane is moving at a different speed or in a different direction than any other part except for the propeller. And so everything is in perfect focus, and I really love that. Again, I like the fact that there's some space on the right of the image so that the plane has sort of space to move. The rushing of the panning here and the blurring in the background is very nicely done. This is a very good image. You know, if you're going to be doing these kinds of panning shots, you might try to toy around with a slightly slower shutter speed to see if you can get some propeller blur in the image. But I realize that's easy for me to say. Okay, next.
My Atlantis Crystal Photomicrography, Ivan Bub, 7.
So this is a photomicrograph of a crystal, apparently. When I first looked at this, I don't look at the titles before I look at images, and in this case, I looked at this and said, "Wow, psychedelic alien landscape here." Lots of bright colors, very vivid colors. A lot of interesting texture going on in here. The bubbles are a nice touch. I don't know what they are exactly, but it's a nice touch. The only thing is it feels a little too vivid, and I kind of lose interest in it because of the vividness, and that's me. But it's a very good photograph. Next.
Tobermory by Tom Story, 6.
My first impression of this was, Irish fishing village here. What a nice touch. It even looks like that the name of the pub back there is the Irish Pub, right? Or I think it is, or something like that. At any rate, it turns out it's not. It's in Ontario at Lake Huron, but that doesn't matter. It's a very nice photo. I love the use of the boat at the bottom to sort of as a base for the whole image. Sort of stabilizes the image horizontally against the vertical uplift of those buildings. It's a very nice touch. Talk about primary colors, there they are. I would have put a little more space at the top of the image. I also think we have some sort of, I don't know, unnecessary clutter, if you will, on the left and the right here. And the way I would tone that down is I would toy around with vignetting a bit. Very nice image.
Woodland Scene, Julie Stauffer, 8.
My first impression of this is, whoa, Gustav Klimt, right? Lady in Gold. And it's got that sort of glittery gold feel to it. And I really like that. This is a collage, I assume. There's enough detail in here to be interesting in the trees and the bushes. The green bush in the front sort of stands out a bit, and that's fine. Sort of, it's a place for your eye to land initially, at least. A thing I really liked, and I sort of wish was highlighted a bit more, is you see the line of bush here at the top of that bush is sort of horizontal, or has that slanted angle to it. But then coming out of that bush, it feels like there's some visual elements that sort of swirl around here and sort of draw you back to the bottom again. I wish that that visual swirl was highlighted a bit more. That would make it a more interesting photo, at least to me, but I do like this photo.
Preparation, Lee Reeves, 8.
This is great layering here. The use of the different lines going slightly different, you know, angling across each other, the colorations of the fields, and then you get to the up here towards the foothills of the mountains in the distance there, and the mountains themselves, and then the sky. I mean, it's beautiful layering effect here, and I love the colors. I might try to get more detail in the sky and the mountains, but that's it. It's a great shot.
Sacred Eye by Julie Rawson, 8.
So I have to acknowledge that I usually am not all that interested in abstracts. They tend to I tend to lose interest in them fairly quickly. This one I really liked, and I liked it because of the patterns on patterns on patterns in here. There's a lot going on, and for me that's very intriguing. So you have these two sort of vertical incursions from the lower right there. And they're patterned as well, and they draw your eye up to the top. And so what's up here at the top? Well, we got this interesting swirling thing going on. We've got these twirling bits in here. Not sure what that is, but I like it. And then the curve that we're starting up here at the very top is continued on around here on the other side. And that's to me, a very satisfying kind of curvature on the whole image. And then to top all that off, we have these lines going, you know, slanting up from the lower right to the upper left, all throughout the whole field of the image, which is terrific. And then lines cutting across them just to create interesting visual texture to the thing. And then we've got the whatever it is that's causing this curvature here on the top is very appealing to me. The thing I would suggest, the title is Sacred Eye, and that evokes for me the sacred eye of Horus, which is an ancient Egyptian symbol. If you rotate this image 90 degrees to the right, then it actually kind of looks like an eye. You know, you've got this part here is the brow of is the upper lid of the eye. This part down here is the lower lid of the eye. I don't know what this, it's got something sticking in its eye. I don't know what that means, but then it would look more like an eye to me, and might be more instantly, might be an interesting impact. You might want to try that. Right.
The Forest by Debbie Lewinson, 4.
Yeah, this is, you know, it looks like intentional camera movement against a bunch of tree trunks. So you get this sort of vertical blur representing tree trunks, and I like that impression. It's a very flat image, totally very flat. If you look at the histogram on this, it's all bunched in towards the center. And so I would try to create some more distinction and depth there to that. And I would probably try to brighten up some of the brighter parts and darken down some of the darker parts. In other words, contrast. Sorry, did you go back?
Sorry.
I'm not sure this is actually intentional camera movement, by the way. The shutter speed on this was 1/40th of a second, which is very fast to get that amount of blur in the thing. I mean, it's possible, I suppose, but you'd have to really be moving the camera. It may have been done in post, which again, I don't really care that much. It's the impression that's important. I would try to add depth, as I said, and also I feel like it's much of a muchness. I mean, there's the sameness to this repetition of the trees, and I'd like to see some other visual element integrated into this for interest. Okay, next.
Remember Me, Vince Pellegrini, 7.
This it is to me as a very evocative image, but I'm not sure what's being evoked for me. I'll get to that. This looks to me like we're either in an old, rusty old cell here, or maybe on the outside looking into a cell. I don't know. Doesn't matter. I would try to brighten some of the elements, the really dark elements, up a little bit. In particular, I would like to make it clear that this is a door frame, so that we're actually looking through a door, and make that something that is more obvious to me as I'm looking at it. I love the gritty rusty old door here, and I think that's a great visual element. And then we have this very bright window in the back, which draws your eye very quickly, and so it must be important. So consequently, I kind of wish it was more centered. That's me. It's a collage. Obviously, there's bits and pieces of images. So there's this like field, and there's building and a tree, and roof, and more tree stuff. But the most important part to me is the fact that there's people in this image, and they're kind of vaguely defined. It's not really, they aren't really clear features. So what I get is a sense of, yes, remembrance, but these are people that maybe that were disappeared into a very dark place and are no longer with us. But I get the sense that to the creator of this image, the elements of that collage are personally important, but I don't quite know why. To me, for me to get a little bit more of an impact from this, I need to know more than remember me. I need to know a little bit more, at least a sentence about what this is about. Okay, next.
Don't Give Up, Bob Gross, 9, 2nd place.
So strong initial visual impact on this one. Boy, I said I really want to be in that Yosemite picture. I don't want to be the person in this picture, being sort of assaulted by that deluge of sparks flying at you. Very, very intense looking image. The guy is sitting there with what looks like a pink umbrella, sort of fending off the sparks coming at them. Very impactful. I like all the elements of this image. The thing that I marvel at a little bit is this was a very long exposure, 18 seconds. So that guy was standing still long enough for 18 seconds for you to get enough clarity that you could tell that this was some guy in some kind of protective suit. 18 seconds under that kind of a deluge of sparks is a long time. I don't know how you got him to stand still that long, but it's a very good image. Thanks.
A Quiet Place, Mia Curran, 5.
There's a strong meditative feel here. And we have this bench. The bench is, I think, important in the image, and it's important because it's lit. It's sort of a bright spot in the image. If it's a bench for meditating, I wish there was more distance on the left side here for the bench to be facing. It's like it's a bench looking kind of claustrophobic. And there's perhaps more detail behind the bench than is really necessary, kind of cluttery feel. It's a bit contrasty for my taste. I don't know why the ground down here looks purple to me, but on the other hand, it is a kind of an evocative feel to this that I appreciate. Okay, next.
Sears Tower and a Sky Flamingo, Terry Gola, a 4.
I I have to say, I spent a long time staring at this image, trying to find the shy flamingo. So, points to you for getting me to look at your image for a long time. And I'm afraid I could never see it, so I was a little disappointed. But maybe that's just my lack of imagination. I don't know. I like the collage effect here, very much. The sort of the weaving bits of collage into the building image to just sort of emphasize parts of the image a lot. On the other hand, I felt like it was, I don't know, too much collaginess going on here, maybe. The image is just a little drab, so I'd like it to be brightened up a bit. There's these bits, fragments of newspaper that I can barely, well, I can't really read the text of, except for this word "you" down here at the bottom. I don't think the image is just about you, but it's okay. I don't want to discourage you from continuing to do this. I think this is, I really respect the intention here and the concept of what you're trying to do here. So I would say keep doing it, but it didn't get there for me quite yet. Next.
Surrounded by Clouds. Karen Lay, 9, third place.
This is a gorgeous photograph, in my opinion. We've got all this, the sky that is very important in here, the stars. It's a longish exposure, I think 13 seconds. So the clouds move through the sky, and their movement, either away or towards the photographer, creates these leading lines in the sky. I really like that. Also, we get some shadows here. Shadows here at the top of the image that coming out there are also a little bit leading lines. I love the light coming in from the side. It's great. I will say this image was taken at a fairly high ISO. I forget what it was, 2000, ISO 2000. And so in correcting for the noise in that, I suspect you eliminated some of the detail in the sky. You can get that back by using the sharpening tool in Lightroom, and you see a lot more of the stars if you do that. Okay, next.
Sorry about that. The Priceless Gift of Touch. Jackie Henney, 8.
What a great feeling this image conveys here. I mean, the expression on the woman's face over on the right is just priceless. It's a beautifully, almost luminescent face. I love that. And then the hand touching the bunny. I mean, the hands are very important in this image, and that's good. The hands and the bunny and the arm and the face are all where the action is in this picture, and it tends to be up towards the top. So I wish it was, a little bit more centered, more towards the bottom. That's just me. It looks a little bit oversaturated, the red here and the blue jeans. A thing you might think about, I don't know, it may or may not be good, but the hands are important. So you might think about cropping to, something like this, to just focus on the hands and the bunny, and that would be a different image, but it might be a very compelling one as well. I like this image a lot. Next.
Imperfect Reflection. Ginny Lodge, 7.
Great apple, great still life here. Beautiful lighting on the apple. I love the old tarnished silver spoon and the apple that's seen better days, with a sort of little bonus reflection in the bowl of the spoon. That's really nice. I would like to have seen in clearer detail the front here a little bit. I think it might have added to the image to do that. And the only other thing I'll say, I mean, I love the light in here, by the way. I think it's great. The only other thing I'll say is that the surface of the apple looks a little waxy. And something can be done about that, and I'll show you later, but that's a small criticism. This is a very good image. Next.
Iris motion study 3, Tom Story 7.
So intentional camera movement, I suspect. So we have these irises, which are brightly colored, of course, and as irises are, apparently against some green background, I think. And then you sort of bring the camera up and sort of waver it a little bit to get that sort of flame-like dance in the lines going vertically. And so it's a very lovely effect, a very brilliant effect that strikes my eye, and I like that. But this is one of those that has a very strong initial impression, and then after a moment or two, I kind of lose interest a little because once you figured out what's going on and looked at it for a moment, that's it. I wish there was some other visual element in this picture to sort of take my attention as well. Next.
Shaded by Flowers, Mia Curran 5.
That's a great parasol there, or umbrella. I like the colors of it, and I think should be the center of attention of this image. Image is just a little drab. There's some details that got lost down here in the dark part of the image. And then there's this crosswalk that I think is kind of distracting. So I would brighten the image up and try to bring out some of a bit more details in that dress or skirt or whatever it is down below, and then darken down that crosswalk so it's not so visually important in the image.
Angel Wings, Jackie Henney 5.
And lovely swooping image here, lines here with a few vertical lines to cut across. It's tilted a little bit, and I'm sorry, once again, my lack of imagination. I couldn't see angel wings as hard as I looked at this image. And then it sort of darkens down towards the bottom of the image, and that's kind of nice. It feels a little squashed in at the sides. I'd like to see more of that stretched out a bit to the side. Okay.
Light the Way, Vince Pellegrini 8.
Beautiful image. I love the low-key nature of this. It's very well done with some bright spots in the image that really works well. I like the colors. I like the converging lines that sort of draw your eye over to that bright. I don't know if that's a picture or a window in the background there. That seems to be an important thing because your eye is drawn there, both because it's bright and because of the converging lines. I would like to see it pulled away from the edges, the bottom and the edge a bit, to get it more in the center of attention. Also, there's just this one element here, this one lamp that I wish wasn't there. I find it distracting from the nice lines of the image, but it's a gorgeous, rich color, rich image. Next.
Chocolate Suds, Tim Huey 8.
I got very excited when I saw this because, as Vince mentioned, I do a lot of photography of artifacts, not product photography like this, but it's got a lot of similarities, and so I recognize the skill that went into this photograph. It's a very well done product photograph. The lighting in the back that sort of blows up, that's really nice, and the color of the lighting was perfect for the browns of the porter and the glass and the chocolate. Anybody who has tried to take pictures of round glass knows that it's very hard to do that without getting hot spots and glares and reflections. So this is very well lit. I mean, you've got the light coming in from the side that gives a contour to the round glass, both of them, and that's very nice. The foam that you've caught just in the act of dripping down, the arrangements of the chocolate and the cap at the bottom, it's all very well done. My challenge to you would be, see if you can figure out how to eliminate this sort of bar of darkness right down the center of the label. That's it's not where I would want it to be dark. Also, then the side over here, and this is because of the angle of the light, of course. The side over here is washed, the label is washed out a little, and that's a little unfortunate. So lighting challenge, how would you deal with that? Next.
Storm Pointer, Lee Reeves, 4.
Wonderful swirling clouds here. I really like that part of it. And then you have this telephone pole sort of intruding into the picture, and to me that adds sort of an element of interest that I like. The dirt down here at the bottom, the dirt ridge or whatever that is, seems to me to be kind of, I don't know, unnecessary. I'd try to darken that down. I'd also try to brighten up the telephone pole a bit to call it out a little more. And then try to get a little more drama. The picture as a whole, again, is kind of flat in terms of tonality, and I think it needs a little more drama. I think there's a nice swirl coming out of the top of the phone pole. Maybe that's what you meant by storm pointer, but and maybe I just realized that after the fact. But that's a nice swirl, and I'd like to see that highlighted a bit more. Okay.
Urban Vista, Terrigola, 6.
Really nice visual impact here. I love the that sort of artificial waveform that we're seeing. That's a result of the shadows of the building below being cast on the face of the building above. Wonderful blues throughout, the variations of blues. That's great. The only thing, I mean, there's places where it seems to me that things are a little bit out of focus, which is a depth of field issue. But that's not the thing that's a little bit distracting to me is that there are these bright spaces in the image that to me are just a little bit too bright, and it's almost distracting. It almost pulls me away from the richness of the rest of the image. But it's a very good image.
Black Skimmers, Debbie Lewinson, 8.
I mean, what says summer like this than anything like this? I mean, it's a great summer type image. You get this temperature gradient from the cool blues to the warm yellows on the bottom, reminiscent of the sky and sand, of course. Very smooth gradient, so it doesn't interfere with any parts of the birds. Nice multiple exposure of the birds. Well done there. The only thing is, if anything, I would like to see a little bit more detail in the in some parts of the wings. Maybe a little bit more, make it a little darker for the bird itself. I assume it's the same bird flying through. It might not be, but it's very well done. Okay.
Smoky Mountain Dawn, Ellen Zimmerman, 9, first place.
Boy, I was blown away by this image. Again, I'm a sucker for this kind of mountain ridges fading into the background. It's beautiful. I really like the use of different colors to emphasize the different layers, so to speak, in the image. There's a lot of detail that has been taken out of this image, in effect, and yet there's still a lot of detail left. It's a rewarding image to spend some time looking at and thinking and poring over. I mean, I like the sort of frilly tree lines on some of the lines of the ridges here. I liked the clouds up here, the faint clouds up here, that's very nice. I like the mist rising up in places. There's also these trees that almost look cloud-like in a line over here, sort of echoing that ridge. It's very nice. And I just overall, I love this image. I might lighten it up, but I don't know that it needs it. Okay, next.
Bridges to connect us. Judy Ralston, 7.
Yeah, great wide angle view here of the skyline. I believe this is Manhattan. And I believe this is the Brooklyn Bridge. I'm not positive of that, but I think it is. I really like that long line of the bridge stretching across the image. It's very effective. And I like the sort of earth tones of this image, which sort of warms up a city which can be kind of cold. I like the little splash of color that pops up down here. And then I think maybe the thing I'm most impressed by is a picture of Manhattan in which there's virtually no automobiles that you can see. That's hard to do. I might try to make the sky a little bit more dramatic, and I would almost certainly want to see a little more space above the peak of that high tower there.
Blue in Ice. Julie Stoffer, 6.
Yeah, sort of neon electric flowers here, sort of glowing. It's really a very strong impact against this black background. It's really great. This arrangement was I mean, this was an arranged thing. I could tell when I brought up the exposure on the image, but that's okay. It's a wonderful image in many respects. Couple of things. I wish this particular leaf right here wasn't there. I think it allows some separation between the two blossoms that they kind of need. I wish that the stems didn't look so cut off. I wish they came right out of the bottom of the image. But I do like the sort of random nature of the petals strewn about. It's a good image. Sorry. One other thing I would say about that one is that because it's so bright, you kind of lose contour and depth and detail in here, and I would wish for some of that back. Okay, next.
Bodie Reflection. Karen Lay, 8.
I think this is the same lighthouse, beautiful lighthouse, and a beautiful sky. I just love it. And the reflection, you get the reflection as a bonus in this one. The light coming in from the side is very nice. I like this. I like the whole image a lot. Again, I would point out that if you sharpen up this image, you get more stars in the sky and in the pond or whatever it is in front of us, and perhaps a bit more detail even in the shoreline, which would still stay dark, but it might have a little bit more visual interest. Love the picture.
Oil Droplet Simplicity. Ivan Bub, 7.
Yeah, this is vivid green, and then you get my initial impression looking at this was metal rings, perfectly round metal rings, practically lying right next to each other. That's kind of interesting. Then I looked at the title, and I'm now led to believe that these are actually oil drops. And what we're seeing here that looks like metal is actually refraction of light from the edges of the oil drops. That's a very, very impressive image in that regard. I feel like it could be cropped in from the side a little bit because it's a little unbalanced feeling to me. And then other than that, I'm not sure I would do much other than that. Okay. Next.
And that would be it. Carl, thank you. We had some pretty fantastic images, many fantastic images. I think your critiques were very thoughtful and insightful for sure, and I hope very educational for everyone. Really good job. I'm going to stop screen sharing, and thank you again, Carl. if you have time, if it's okay on your end, if you want to show a few demos, that would be great.
I would be happy to, and
Okay.
if people need to leave, that's understandable. No problem.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. All right. Okay, one of the images that I had said I wish was different was this very bright sunrise image, which I think looks a little bit muddy and then has these sort of odd glowing bits around the twigs. And so I'd like to talk about and show you what it is that I would do a little bit differently in order to prove that. First of all, I mentioned, I think, that you get this kind of effect from setting the clarity adjustment in Lightroom way down. And so it's odd that one of the ways in which I found to fix this problem is to set clarity way down. So notice what happened when I did that, right? See that? It certainly is different, and some of the bright rims have disappeared, and that's, in my mind, a good thing. Now, it's still quite muddy, so I've still got work to do here. I'm going to try to get some of the highlights back, tone that up a bit, and then maybe try to get some contrast back here as well. Set that up to about 50. I hope you can see my cursor. It's kind of large, and it's
Yes, we can.
Good, making adjustments. Now the other thing is, it still seems I'd like it to be a bit brighter, and so I'm going to go into the color mixer. The color mixer allows you to adjust hue, saturation, and luminance for different bands of the color spectrum. In this case, I want to up the luminance on orange a little, believe it or not. I want to bring that up a little. And then also the saturation, believe it or not. So it gives it a stronger feel. And then finally, when I look at that, it's like, okay, I need some more texture here for me. That helps to create some definition, particularly in the clouds, that I would like to make sure we get back. So, so this is the kind of thing that I would do to the image. Let's see if we can know that. Unfortunately, sometimes that comparison screen doesn't work very well. But you can see the difference. This is the original image as it was, and this is the image as I've adjusted it. We've lost a lot of those bright rims, which to me are kind of distracting, and a lot of the muddiness is gone. There's still some bits of halo around the little twigs here, but not as much, not as noticeable as it was. That to me is an improvement. I hope you agree. Okay. I mentioned, let's see if I can find it, the Apple still life picture that I mentioned that I thought the surface was a little waxy, and I'd like to show you how I would try to polish the apple a bit. So I'm going to do that with masking. Masking is just a way of allowing you to do localized adjustments on an image. So I use the masking tool in the upper right, and I'm going to use a masking brush. I set the feathering on the brush so that it's got a fair amount of feathering. I do that because I don't want it to be a harsh edge to the brush when I apply it to the image. And then I use auto masking so the brush doesn't leak over into the black. Okay, so I'm going to just start brushing over this. Now, that little pinkish cast you're seeing is the indication by the program of where it is I've been brushing. It's not an actual adjustment to the image. And so I'm going to brush this whole part here, which I think looks kind of a little on the waxy side. I'm going to try to brighten all that up. Okay. So I can take away that pink overlay, and you can see the original images instead. Now, what I want to do is, the first thing I want to do actually is bring up the texture and dehaze a bit. And that's a way of making a surface begin to look almost wet. It's a good way to, if you have cobblestones and you want to make it look like it's just rained, you can use this on cobblestones. But you can see, I think already, you can see before I added the brush, it's here, and you can see that it's made a difference. Now it's introduced some things that maybe we don't want to keep. So let's go back to the color mixer. Let's focus on the yellow saturation to the extent that we can. Let's bring it up a bit, yellow and orange, so that it stands out a bit more. And then I'm going to focus on the red. Now, you notice down here up below the stem, there's a portion of the apple that looks a little pale. And then if I darken this down a little bit, you can see the paleness kind of goes away. So to me, this is, again, this is a shinier looking apple. I don't know how it looked. It got to be waxy. It might have been a combination of light or the kind of processing that you may have done here. But I think this helps a bit. Again, you want to see the original, that's the original. And against the polished up version. Yeah, I like that result. Let's see, another one was the oh yes, the here in nature, that sort of, I don't know if this is the Andes, but it looks like it, image with the llama and the mountain and the rainbow. First thing is, I think there's too much darkness down here at the bottom, and it's kind of unnecessary. So I'm going to crop that out. And I'm going to bring it up, bring that up, and then bring the sky down because it's a little distracting to me. Not completely eliminate the blue, but take a lot of it out. And again, what the effect of this will be is to emphasize the llama and the mountain and the rainbow a bit more by doing this. I think I'm going to also get rid of some of this haziness over here on the left. I don't know that it's necessary, but by moving this in a little bit, you'll notice that the llama is now lined up on the 1/3 line here. The rainbow is lined up on the 1/3 line here. We also got the bottom 1/3 horizontal line running right through the llama as well. So it's to me an appealing kind of position. Okay, so let's go to work on the image itself. So I would like to get rid of some of that haziness myself. I think in fact, I'd like to get rid of quite a bit of it. So I could probably tone it up like that. Again, I think there's texture to be found in this image, and I'd like to bring it out. Focus here on that part of the mountain in front of the craggy part of the mountain, and watch as I adjust the texture up. I think maybe about there. It's about right. But I mean, you can see, maybe you can see it, that this is without the adjustment and that is with the adjustment. It's a subtle difference, but I like it more. Now I'm going to bring the highlights down in order to try to improve the, I don't know, the drama in the image, so to speak. I'm going to bring the highlights and the shadows down a little bit, maybe a little more. And then the blacks I'm going to bring down a little. So. Now, it's gotten to be kind of dark here, so I'm going to try to brighten it up. And whites are, a good way to brighten an image. It tends to do that to images. So I'm going to bring it up fairly far. The whites up fairly far. And now I feel like I've sort of oversaturated the image a little so that it takes some of the saturation out. Negative, in a negative direction there. I think that works pretty well. And then also, I think there's more sharpness that could be gotten out of this. So I'm going to try. I'm going to go for the detail sharpening tool and try to increase that and see. Yes, I do like that. It helps a little bit. It's very subtle, but I like the sharpness of that detail. Now, the sky seems to be too bright. So I'm going to use the masking tool. I bring that up over here on the right. And one of the things you'll notice is that you can mask the sky. So I'm going to tell it, create a mask for the sky. And it goes away and it tries to figure out what it thinks is the sky. And the pink overlay here is what it thinks is the sky. That's not bad. So let's just leave it at that. I'm not gonna, we could fine tune that a bit, but I'm not gonna, I think this is good enough for our purposes now. So you see what happens is I bring that down a little, it makes it a much more dramatic sky. And I kind of like that. And I like drama. Then I think I'd like to go to work on the llama. I think there's detail in the llama I would want to bring up, and not just silhouette him as he is now, or her. So I'm going to use the object mask tool, in which you just paint around the thing that you want to create a mask for. Again, Lightroom goes away and figures out what it thinks you wanted to have highlighted, and it did a pretty good job here. The red there is showing what it thinks is the object I wanted to have highlighted. In this case, the llama. So I want to bring the shadows up quite a bit. See what I see, and already we see starting to see some detail emerge there, which I like. Exposure somewhere around there. Bring that up. Now the parts of the llama that are supposed to be white are beginning to look blue. I just point that out. But before I try to do something about that, there's this, I want to bring up the highlights a little so I can see even more detail. So I said it's a little blue. Let's change the temperature, warm it up a little bit, maybe about there. I think that's pretty good. The white looks like it's actually maybe kind of white. And then, this looks too sharp to me. It's like there's too much detail or texture on this one. So believe it or not, there's such a thing as too much sharpness for me. So I'm going to bring the sharpness of the llama down quite a bit. And to me, when I do that, it just looks a little bit more natural. It doesn't get quite so spiky. So this is the full image. Let's see again if nope, it didn't. Again, it just seems to compare itself to itself. But I can show you quickly here. That's the original image as it was imported here. And this is the new image, and I think it's a much more dramatic image. I really like the image. As I said, you captured the right elements here. I just was pumping it up a bit. So there's that one. How are we doing on time, Vince?
I think you're okay for a few more minutes.
Okay. All right. So what I think I will do is finish here with this one image of the garden shed, and I mentioned let's sepia tone this. So let me show you how I would do that. There's used to be called split toning in Lightroom, and now it's called color grading. All right. Color grading is different from color mixing, although you have much the same kinds of tools, it's just you got more fine-tuned control. So what you see here on the right are three balls, so to speak. One for highlights down here in the corner, one for midtones, and then over here, one for shadows. And in any one of these balls, when you click on it or select it, you see the H, S, and L. That stands for hue, saturation, and luminance. So you have control, the interface here gives you control over those three elements of the highlights and of the tonal spectrum. This same thing, but for the midtones, and then this for shadows. So that's the difference between this and the color mixer. Color mixer is gives you those kinds of controls, but over the whole tonal range. So let me start here. I'm going to use this to not only do the sepia toning, but also to sort of create a little bit more tonal depth to this image, to brighten it up a little and give it a little bit more contrast. So I'm going to do that all within the color grading tool. So I'm going to start with midtones. So this is the midtones tool. And the first thing I'm going to do is say that I know from experience that for sepia toning, or for what I like as sepia toning, getting in sort of between the orange and the yellow hue, see that down here, but you can also see this little ball over here on the edge of the larger ball. That's sort of on the border between orange and yellow. That's a good hue. Now, you may or may not have noticed, but nothing changed in the image when I did that. In fact, you won't see any change until I start changing saturation, which you don't change it by much. I don't think. I set it around 30 or so, about there. You see now it's starting to show, it looks a little browner or orange, or I'm not sure how you see that. But it's starting to show. Now I'm also going to kick up the luminance a bit here, because I want to sort of brighten those midtones a little. So there we have it. It's already looking kind of sepia tone. But I'm going to switch over to shadows at this point, the darker end of the spectrum. In this case, so look, going for brown. Brown is kind of a mix of several colors, but one of the things I think is the case is that I'd like to get some of the sort of purplish end of the spectrum in here for the shadows. It's not going to be a deep purple, but it's going to be kind of bright. So you see the ball moved all the way over here to this end between the sort of reddish and purplish spectrum. Again, you won't see any change until I start playing around with the saturation. And again, you don't need to move it up much. And then with luminance on this one, I would pump this up a bit. Yeah. So again, what have we done here with the shadows? I don't know if you can see the difference. This was just with the midtones only, and now we've added the shadows and it's changed it slightly. And now I'm going to go to work on the highs, because when the first thing I want to do is try to brighten the image up. Remember, I thought it looked a little drab, so let's try to pick up the luminance to a point where it brightens it up a bit. And now the white part looks kind of too white, too sort of paper white, I guess. And so I'd like to again, I'd like to add a little bit of tint to that. And again, I'll take the hue that's between orange and yellow, and just bring the saturation up to somewhere around 30 or so. Like that. Okay. Now that's awfully close in my eye, at least, to an interesting sepia tone. The blending and balance tools now is where I would go. at the very end. What blending does is it sort of balances or unbalances towards either the midtones or the shadows. And I think I'd like to balance it a little bit in this direction. It's just, you play around with these tools until they give you the effect that you want. And then the balance, I bring that up to balances the highlights against the other parts. So this is the end. That might be a little, I took that balance maybe a little too far. It got a little bright again. There we go. So that's the sort of the do-it-yourself sepia toning. Now, there's presets in Lightroom that you can just with one button click, it'll sepia tone it for you, but it won't sepia tone it the way necessarily the way you want. And I like a particular kind of sepia toning, so I'd like to do it myself, and this is the way I do it. But notice, I did not just do sepia toning. I adjusted the brightness and the contrast in the image as well while I was doing this, all within the color grading tool. I think why don't we stop? I could keep
Yeah,
going.
I think that would be a good spot, Carl. That was wonderful. I definitely learned how to use that color grading better, a new dimension for me with this toning. That was dramatic. Very good.
Good.
Do you, for yourself, do you have that as a preset?
No,
Do you do it individually for every image?
yeah, I do, because I kind of like this. To me, it's I sort of feel like with sepia toning is something I would like to be subtly different for different images. You know, I suppose I could set it up as a preset and then adjust from there. That's probably a good idea. But it usually, it doesn't take me that long to do sepia toning if I want it. The other thing is I don't do sepia toning that often, so.
Okay. We did lose a few as it got later, but the way our members work, they will be looking at the video. I get emails, how quickly am I going to get the video? So the folks at the Goggle Works have told me that they really had a great time. We got a whole bunch over there at our clubhouse, and this was to me, I found this to be a wonderful exercise with your critiques. They were just great.
Thank you. Well, it was a real pleasure reviewing them, as I said at the outset. It was great.
Well, thank you. I know you did a lot of work for it.
You guys got good stuff going there. I'm impressed.
Good. All right. Marcia will be in touch, Carl.
Okay, very good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Bye.
Good comments in the chat from folks. Wonderful presentation. Love it. Always nice feedback. And I'll send those to you.
Very good. All
Thanks.
right. Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.